And Big Blue Nation to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston, joined by my co-host, as always, Jacob Boyers. Jacob, a roller coaster of emotions this weekend for Kentucky's 92-68 win over the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Jake, the Cats found themselves down double digits early once again, something we continue to talk about. This team continues to find themselves in holes that majority of the time they can't dig their way out of. But in this game, they were able to. They won by 24, and yet still somehow, after we got the news today, season still feels like it's over, even though this was an impressive victory.
Yeah, brutal. You said roller coaster of emotions. I think that we've talked a couple times that pretty much describes, I think, the entire season. But yeah, going back to Saturday night, as bleak as it could look, right? Kentucky goes down 10. Jaland Lowe, 2 minutes into the game's run into the locker room. You now find out, he's out for the year. We'll talk a little more in depth about what we think that means. I think everybody listening kind of has an idea of what we think it means. But yeah, to the guys' credit, I think, Pope started playing, I think, lineups that really benefited this team. I'm still not sure how great they can be without Jaland Lowe, but it was just nice to see guys that hadn't really played with a lot of effort and a lot of heart play with that and play kind of an unselfish style of basketball. I mean, 21 assists, you finally cracked 20 assists against a team that's, not 330th in the net. So saw some good minutes even out of a guy that we've been as critical as anybody in recent memory of Kentucky and Denzel Aberdeen. I thought you had, some good minutes there. Cam Williams played a lot. Otega's, looking like that preseason SEC player of the year through 3 SEC games, even though maybe the team success hasn't been there. But overall, just Saturday night in a vacuum, I think you got to be pretty happy with kind of how they rallied. And, I don't care who you play in the SEC to go get a 24-point win. You feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, and I just want to continue what you said there with Otega Owe, because we were critical of him in the first, 4 or 5 games of the season. Didn't really seem like he was fully invested. And since then, man, this guy has been terrific. I think he's taken a big leap from what he was as a player last year. And I truly think he's taken on that leadership role for this team. I mean, this team is down 28-17 with 11:02 left in the first half. And then Otega goes on a 5-0 break by himself with a steal and then hits a 3 as well. And then really that just continued throughout the rest of the game. Obviously, we came back and ended up taking the lead there shortly. And I don't even know if I want to say surprised by Otega Owe, but I came into the season expecting, his high to be what he was last year. The guy that, while he was good in spurts and, very consistent, I never thought he could be a good team's best player. And while I still think he needs more complementary pieces, especially on this team, I think he's been everything and more that you can ask for. And you're seeing a lot of it on the defensive side of the ball, which I think is really leading to his game just coming together in its entirety.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the defense could be kind of what gets him going. I mean, he had 5 steals in this game. It felt like he was obviously extremely active, right? He was getting into a lot of passing lanes that gets him going. He can, when he finds that intensity defensively, we've said it now for a year and a half of watching him, like he's just a completely different player. And I think you see too just how much more beneficial it is to have him offensively on the floor without like a Mo Diabate, with Cam Williams playing the 5 or 4, and then with Malachi, it just kind of gives a little more spacing for Otega to do what Otega does, and that's get to the rim. And you can't really do that when Mo's defender doesn't have to respect his outside game. So I think you see that. You just mentioned they had 28 points less than halfway through the first half, and they finished the game with 68. I think the team as a whole, I'll continue to kind of give some props to Denzel just because of how critical we've been. I don't know what his efficiency defensive ratings equaled out to this week or this game compared to, the other 2 that we've kind of harped on. But, I'd say it's probably better than like a 0% or 10% stop rate, because it did feel like he was, making some plays. I mean, he was fighting for rebounds against the anchor dude or whatever.
Yeah, that was a great play.
Yeah,
That's something, that physicality I have not seen from Denzel all season. That
none.
was that was something that, to me, granted, I want to say this: it's one play, so take it with a grain of salt.
Sure.
That's something of. It looked for the first time like he was fully bought in to this team and like being a leader for his teammates. He spoke to the fact that he wanted to be a leader for this team. That was the first play where I think guys around him could take notice and be like, "Hey, man, that's a senior guard out there with a 6'10" center that I'm,
Yeah.
walling off for a rebound." It's just like that's something that we thought we were getting from him from the start of the season, and to see that he obviously scored. I mean, that play that you mentioned, give Denzel a lot of props, because I don't think there's been anyone in the state of Kentucky who's been quite as negative on Denzel Aberdeen as the two of us. And honestly, with rightful reason. He has been putrid so far throughout the season, minus a couple games. But something you mentioned right there with Ortega that I kind of want to hit on more. Jake, we've said all this before. He needs driving lanes. We've said this multiple times. You can't play Ortega and Mo at the same time. They're just too similar of players in which, and I want to give Ortega credit. His 3-point shot, while it's honestly might look worse, it's going in at a higher clip. So I want to give him credit for that. And getting out in passing lanes, getting in transition, those two things that we hinted on early in the season are really what's really driven Ortega's success here lately.
Yeah, and it all starts on the defensive side of the ball, and I think this team. We've talked about it. We talked about it against Indiana and St. John's to an extent. Like this team's probably going to have to win games more so on the defensive side of the ball, and especially with Lowe being out for the year. I think they're going to continue to struggle in the half court. So what can you do to kind of get by that? Get some steals, get these guys sped up. You got to play with a lot of intensity and a lot of effort. And I would imagine, obviously, we got word today that Lowe was shutting it down and getting surgery. I have to imagine just about everybody on that team seeing him on the bench when he came back out figured like it's probably done, right? Third time you knock your shoulder out of socket, you probably realize like that guy's not coming back this season. So I think they kind of use that as a rallying card, and to all their credit, they went out there and played extremely well. I mean, not just Ortega. We're 8 minutes into this podcast, not mentioning the guy that might have been the best player on the floor, and Malachi. So just I thought really, honestly, everybody that kind of stepped on the floor outside of maybe Mo, like I thought played really, really well, and that was obviously really good to see outside that first 9 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, Jake, let's go ahead and have the Jaland Lowe conversation before we dive into Malachi Moreno and how great he played when the offense ran through him, something that we obviously said we needed to see from these bigs. But let's hit on Jaland Lowe first. I mean, truly just devastating for a guy. Like, we obviously battled this all last year with Lamont Butler. But with this one, there's a little bit of a difference, at least in my opinion, it feels like, because the two times in which he has re-aggravated that shoulder, it was straight to the locker room. You knew he wasn't coming back, especially in this one when he came back out with just the shirt over top and the arm still underneath, not even putting it outside of not even putting it in the arm sleeve there. It really just sucks. But I mean, think about it from Jaland Lowe's camp's perspective. He's 9 games into the season. At this point, it looks like most likely he'll be able to qualify to redshirt this year and get a medical redshirt. And then this day of age of college basketball, and we're talking about Jaland Lowe being what, a $1 to $2.5 million player, especially if he comes back for that redshirt senior season. It sucks to say this. Smart decision, I think, on Jaland Lowe's part. Get healthy, have a full off season to get back and get right. Get continuity with the new team that they'll have next year, and just be ready for a full season and hopefully one in which he's fully the guy by then.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's doing this, so I'm just gonna say like there's no question of toughness when it comes to that kid, right? Like him shutting it down, like I don't think is anything. I said it after, he injured it in practice. I'm like, I could totally see, him shutting it down the first time right after the Louisville game. And it's like, I thought he would do it then. The fact that, he wanted to play through and continue to do it, I think we know, even if he was to sit out 2 or 3 weeks and come back, it felt like you're always just that one play away. Like, none of them have been like egregious. Like, he's gotten like bumped to the floor. Like, it's just like swiping at the basketball. And like, if you can't even do that without, taking the risk of really injuring yourself, like, I do think you kind of have to shut it down. And I mean, the kid, I think, gave everything he had to be out there this year. It's clear he wants to be out there this year. He's, battled through it so much. So nothing but respect for him. I think obviously, it was the right decision for him to probably shut it down. Just to do it for a full season, man, that's tough. And realistically, let's say he came back in 2 to 3 weeks. Let's say he did this another time or two, and then you get to the point where, let's say this team's playing, it's late March and you do it. It's a 6-month recovery. At that point, you're not even for sure ready to go to start the next season, and you miss a whole summer and, camp with these guys. Like, to get it now, he'll be ready to go by June and fully ready to go, I think, obviously without any major setbacks, ready to go for next year. I think it was obviously the right decision, even though it definitely hampers what this Kentucky team can be without him.
Yeah, and he, make no mistake about it, he re-aggravated that shoulder injury 3 separate times. I mean, you spoke to his toughness there. Obviously, this all started with him running into a screen in the blue-white game at Memorial Coliseum in the Mo Diabate of all people. And, I mean, just then, like, you thought that, there's a chance he comes back, plays in that Louisville game, re-injures it, the very next practice right after that.
Yeah, it was before Michigan State.
Then in the St. John's game, obviously goes out, comes back in that game, obviously leads a great comeback and what is probably still our best win so far of the season. And then in this one, to go out as well and just immediately know he's not coming back in. I think especially with the red shirt requirements that are there, this makes way too much sense.
Yeah.
I mean, from everybody's side, honestly, like, and thinking about how this team's playing right now, I don't want to say it. It's almost kind of like a punting for next year. It really is. And we have an uphill battle to even make the NCAA tournament. The last thing I want is Jaland Lowe to be behind on next year and just suffer through more pain like he's done so far this season, just for a chance for us to get into the tournament as like a 9 or a 10 seed.
Yeah, I agree completely. Maybe it's a different conversation, if we're one of the best 5 teams in the country, but it's pretty clear we're not, even with them. But
I mean, I think you could make that same point with Lamont last year. Like, if we weren't having as good quality wins, but I mean, Lamont also didn't have another year, so that just wasn't.
Yeah, I think that's the big key, right? Like, Jalen's got, he probably doesn't have a real career in the NBA. Maybe he can be kind of like a 2-way journeyman player and, hang around the G League and occasionally get, some NBA minutes, but it's not like, he's a guy like JQ that's going to be a top 10 pick and, have this potential long NBA career. So for him, like, you kind of get your money while you can. And to have 2 more years of college basketball, hopefully they're both at Kentucky. I think there's no reason Mark Pope won't do everything to make sure he's back next year. It doesn't sound like that's even like in the realm of possibility for him not to be. But you look at it like, you hate to say it, but you got your starting point guard now, maybe for the next 2 seasons, already locked up, and would love to have him for this year. But like, I also just can't criticize the kid for, how painful it appears that to be every single time he pops it out, and to know that just any time you go to swipe a ball or go for a rebound, you could be running straight back to the locker room again.
Yeah, and I also think Jalen still had, even with going with the season-ending injury, still has a big impact on this team. The ability he has to coach up a guy like Jasper Johnson, who's going to fill into his role, I think is going to be huge going down the stretch. We saw Jasper obviously started to get some minutes in this game, Jake, which we haven't even really been able to dive into this game yet, but it's crazy to see some people play
Yeah.
that might deserve it. So Jasper came in, obviously knocked down a three. It's just you needed Jasper to start playing one way or another because you knew this injury battle was going to go on all season long. So I guess like in the grand scheme of things, it's not how you wanted it to happen, but now Jasper's going to be put in that light. We'll see whether he makes the most of it or if we're just going to have to unfortunately roll with Denzel at the one. And I think you know both of our thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought Jasper, I mean, he still only played, like 10-ish minutes here. So, but yeah, I thought he made the most of those minutes and showed that, he could potentially be kind of that. I don't know if he's ever going to like be the starter, but, he could potentially be a guy that's giving you, 20-ish minutes. I think the big thing was he, for the most part, took care of the basketball. It felt like when he was in there. Yeah, no turnovers, just the 5 points. It just, you need him to almost not kill you. And we're a bad half-court offense to begin with. That's obviously not going to get any better without Jaland Lowe. So I think you just got to try to find a way for this team to, win defensively, get out and run, get in transition every chance you can, and just pray that, that point guard situation just doesn't kill you in games. I think you can kind of tread water enough to beat, these middle of the pack and bottom tier SEC schools.
Yeah, and I kind of want to take this into a positive light and just say that I think Jasper actually fits a Mark Pope system more than a Jaland Lowe does.
Good.
I mean that as in like how you saw the offense running towards the second half and how you saw Malachi Moreno being more the center point for being able to distribute the ball. I think that's a spot where Jasper can kind of thrive. I mean, you've seen his ability to hit threes and you've seen his ability to get to the rack. I think that might be a better spot just for this team in general. Not saying that Jasper playing over Jaland would make the team better, but just when you think of like the zoom action that Pope and the staff wants to run and how they ran it, I mean, and that's the best offense we've seen since what, maybe Louisville? And Louisville really didn't look good. Somehow we just ended up scoring 88 points anyways.
Yeah.
I think in a weird way, this could be a good thing, forcing Pope and this staff to go back to what got them here and what got them winning games last year. And if Malachi is going to be able to put up a performance like that and you can run the offense through him, granted, a lot to ask because Malachi was terrific in this game. 17 points, 6 assists, and only 1 turnover on 80% shooting. In no world do I think we're going to get that every night from Malachi Moreno, but if you can get a little bit of that every night, maybe when JQ's healthy, maybe you find a role for him to do that as well. I think you can really start to see this team at least find more of an identity on offense.
Yeah, I've said a lot. I feel like Malachi is a good passer for a big, and I didn't think there was any reason. He's obviously not Amari Williams. Nobody, and you mentioned it last episode, like there's not many Amari Williams in college basketball, if any, on a year-to-year basis. Amari was a kind of a unicorn and a one of one. So
and we're still waiting for our Celtics jerseys too.
We are. Somebody owes us that. I don't know who that was. I can't remember, but if we can figure that out, that would be great. But like, you look at that stat line. It's not an Amari Williams stat line because Amari didn't even do that. There's been 3 players to do it in Kentucky history, and 2 of them were point guards outside of Malachi. But 17, 8, 6 assists, and then the 4 steals to your point, just 1 turnover. Like, that is a stat line. If I told you that from a year ago, you would think that was Amari. Like, it was perfect. And I think, Pope kind of needs to play that style, and you're seeing it, whether it's strictly basketball or they're getting tired of some of the other stuff with Mo Diabate. You've essentially kind of seen him benched in the last 2 games and play very sporadically. And you just see how much better this team can look with, Cam at the 4 or, Yelovich at times playing either the 4 or 5. Yelovich, a guy that hadn't played in meaningful basketball games in months, and then he comes out and gives you 16 minutes and, played pretty well. He's still not knocking down shots. I think we were begging a couple of those to go in Saturday night. But
Yeah, willing those to go in, yeah.
I mean, he at least still kind of gives that threat. I mean, if he does it for a full season, will teams still respect it? Probably not, but like he's at least still that threat that can kind of pull bigs out. And, for him to give you 16 minutes, I think obviously he was doing some stuff right on the floor, because I don't think Pope would have kind of let him go that long if he wasn't, based on what we've seen the last couple months. So to your point, I think this is kind of between the Lowe injury and the Diabate kind of off the court bickering. I think it's kind of forcing their hands to play the lineups that, while those guys may not be as talented, to your point, like they could definitely fit this style a little better.
Yeah, and I think Yelovich is a perfect example of that. I think we rushed this team a little bit too much. We saw like how poor we were shooting through the first 7 games, and kind of basically just threw our hands up and just scrapped the entire offensive identity that Coach Feger and Coach Pope have been known to do. And you finally saw them get back to that. And I think that's probably why you haven't seen Yelovich play for 5 games. That's why you hadn't seen Jasper get and log many minutes, and why you saw Mo play maybe more than he should have. And then you saw Cam Williams is finally starting to get an extended run now as well. I don't want to say I think this team is going to be anything crazy, but I do think if they stick with this identity, granted, there's going to be games where they can't shoot. I think we've seen that. We've come to expect that in certain games. I think this is a better identity for this team, especially with Jaland being out. He's going to be sidelined. The question I have for you, Jake, is when and if JQ gets back, first off, a lot of rumors flying around about that, what's going on there. Obviously, Jake and I have no sources at all. I'll go outside. When I'm at the women's game on Thursday, I'll just go knock on the Craft Center door and just see if JQ answers. If JQ answers, I'll ask him for you guys.
Just ask Denzel. He'll be there.
Yeah, I'll ask him. Jake, before we get off of Denzel, I did want to say this because you brought up the defensive analytics, and we wanted to bring him up on here.
Yeah.
His stop rate was actually lower than that 10%. It was actually 9.1 in this game. So
maybe I'm starting to give up on analytics because
while he was better on the offensive side of the ball, he still has a while to go on the defensive side of the ball. Had a net points of minus 2.4 in this one. So while this one did look a little bit better, he did shoot. He did help on the offensive side of the ball. Jake, if Denzel does give you that offensively, you can live with these defensive worries. And that effort that he gave with that rebound that we talked about in specific can really allow him to stay on the floor. But outside of that, what do we do when Jaden Quaintance comes back? Do you see our Yelovich's minutes gone again? Does Brandon Garrison, are his minutes gone? What do you see when JQ comes back, if he does?
Man, it's tough because
it's very tough. That's why I asked you a question.
Obviously, JQ is the most talented player on this team, and the most talented player that we've seen at this school maybe for the last 5 years. So we've talked about that. We've gone through it all. I mean, not going to say a certain someone on this podcast compared him to Anthony Davis after one game, but somebody on this podcast might have compared him to Anthony Davis after one game.
All right, let me say something here. Let me say something.
Please.
I said he alters the game like Anthony Davis, and in that St. John's game, he altered it like Anthony Davis. Now, granted, we basically haven't seen him play since then.
Yeah.
So
I still think there's obviously a very big role for JQ on this team. One thing I was going to say, because I was just about to ask you, we were talking about all this. You're talking about Lowe, which I still think Lowe can thrive in a Mark Pope offense if you kind of run him in that similar. It's clear. I think Diabate's could be a really good college basketball player. You saw it at Alabama. It's just probably not in this system. It's clear him and the coaches don't vibe. JQ, I don't really know how he fits in this system, especially offensively. I think you got to find a way. Is it just the case that with Pope, we're going to have to look at the style of player rather than the talent going forward? That's obviously where I feel like we're getting to. So maybe we can't go get the elite of the elite talents because they're not the best shooter, or this guy doesn't have X. I still think, though, you could probably have one guy on the floor at all times that maybe doesn't fit your system perfectly and find ways around it. And I think for the rest of the year, if he comes back, that's going to be JQ. Like, you're going to find ways to get him on the floor. But also, like, let's use him in the opportunities where it arises, right? Like in the Missouri game and you need a stop, let's make sure he's on the floor. The Missouri game where they're shooting the front end of a 1-and-1, yeah, let's put him in for rebounding. Let's utilize his strengths. But he's another guy, like, if you're getting out and running, you don't have to worry about how he fits on the offensive side. You get out and play fast, he'll find ways to get lobs and he'll find ways to create. I think he'll create a lot of fast breaks too with his shot blocking and stealing ability. But after a game like Saturday, I don't really want to see Malachi's minutes diminish. I don't know. Brandon Garrison gives you some good minutes here or there. It's clear you don't need all four of those guys in your front court. That was probably back to roster construction, probably something we, messed up on, was having this many bigs. I think part of it was they didn't expect Malachi to be good, so you probably weren't even expecting to play him this year, and he's just college basketball-wise this year the best of the four. So I think that kind of made it to where you had this issue, but I don't know. What do you think? Where do you see JQ fitting in versus Yelovich or BG or whoever the case may be?
It's honestly a great question because it depends on like what style of basketball they're wanting to play. Like we've seen them go through two different cycles of basketball already. If you're playing the zoom action where the center is taking, and initiating most of the offense, I don't want to say I'm not saying there isn't a role for JQ, but right now he doesn't seem comfortable in a spot where I trust him to facilitate at that level. And to be fair, until this game, you hadn't seen that from a high level from Malachi yet either. So maybe he just needs to be given that chance to do that because we've obviously mentioned how elite he is on the glass and on the defensive side of the ball. When it comes to Yelovich, man, I mean, I feel like I banged the drum for as loud as anybody in Big Blue Nation for him to get some run. I just think he was being utilized in a weird way. Like they wanted to play him to be a physical center, like a traditional five. That's just not who he is. Like that, he should be. Him and Cam Williams should be like never on the floor together. Almost, they should be running that four, unless you want to go with like a big lineup and maybe Mo is the five. Like I don't know. I really don't. Like because I think there's still a world where Mo can be a key piece of this offense, but he has to do like what Malachi just did against Mississippi State. And I don't know if maybe the passing just isn't there, or maybe right now he thought he was going to be a lot bigger piece of this team and it hasn't worked. So you're seeing him start to butt heads with assistant coaches and teammates. Maybe it's just something that's all mental. I really don't know. And I don't think there's a good answer. Like before this game, I thought there was a good answer on what to do.
Yeah.
Then they fully changed offensive schemes. Now, if you let me sit there and like talk to Coach Pope and like ask him all these questions about what they're wanting to do and what is the identity of this team going forward without Jaland Lowe, I think you and I could give a better synopsis of what to go forward with. But as of right now, there's so many things that are up in the air with this team.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of crazy to say it because we both talked, especially early in the year, and then even when he came back in that Indiana game of like how important of a piece Diabate is. Like I think it's just clear, like they're just not on the same page. I mean, people online.
He's also just not playing like that either.
Yeah.
Like that's also the biggest thing for me is like when we saw him in that Indiana game and a lot of those games early in the season.
He was being physical.
He was being physical. He was making the extra pass. He was, diving after loose balls. He was a like 6'8" version of Amari Williams. Yeah. To a lighter extent, obviously, but that's what he was providing this team. And at that time, you and I were big on what Mohamed Diabate could bring to this team. So we thought that's how they were going to run the offense. They went away from that, started doing like this like bully ball technique that didn't really work. Worked for the St. John's game, hasn't really worked since. And now I think you've moved around the deck chair so many times that he's almost just left without a seat at the party.
Yeah, it is funny that like we constantly think like these little changes they make like are the big thing. We said after Indiana and St. John's, obviously, like this team's just going to have to muck it up and win games 66 to 60, and it's pretty clear, like especially in the SEC, you're probably not going to be able to do that. So I do agree with you. Like I think Mo's just going to kind of. I always said it was going to be BG that kind of fizzled away. Like
I still think BG needs to as well. I've always thought Yelovich needs those minutes more than Brandon Garrison does, but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with. I've obviously been pretty critical over the years of BG, but I feel like in the spot minutes, he's giving you some good energy and good effort. But yeah, with Mo, like it's clear like they're just not on the same page. And people said like you could see him mouth, I just want to play basketball to Feger when they're trying to like tell him something. So like I don't know, like Mo does seem like the guy where he doesn't really want to be out there like running a certain style. He just wants to kind of go to the rim and try to grab a rebound over three guys. But like to your point, you haven't done that lately. Like you're not doing that. It's clear him and his teammates don't gel. We talk about how he wants to be a leader. We mentioned it after Missouri. He'll make a mistake and still scream at Malachi or whoever else it may be. So, I can see him fizzling away, and like that sounds so weird. Just we said coming into the year, like we didn't know how he would fit just because Pope likes a shooter in that 4 spot. But even then, to like kind of go from that to essentially no role now, that I think it's seeming like he's probably not going to be able to play. It is pretty staggering to like have gotten here.
Well, the thing
and and real quick, I think it's just back to like Pope's got to value his style over players going forward. Because if you look at Mo Diabate, he was never a guy that would fit Pope's style, and I think it's pretty clear that that's not working. But Pope said he needed this defensive, rebounding, physical force, but it's just clear like that's probably never going to work unless he was 5 inches taller and could play the 5 consistently.
Yeah, and you haven't gotten that from him since like he had a little bit of a spell of that in the St. John's game. But if we're going to take somebody who's physical, defensive rebounder to play on this team, it's Jaden Quaintance and not Mohamed Diabate. And if you're going to have to play them at the 5 regardless, I mean, I think that's where the minutes stopped showing up for Mo was when JQ got back. Maybe we probably should have talked about that more when JQ was returning, and hopefully he returns on Wednesday. I think that's probably where his minutes start to dwindle, but you still got to find ways to get shooters on this floor. And I'm concerned that with this Mississippi State game in particular, with Yelovich, I think they might have just been using him for this game plan for against Mississippi State because they saw a matchup that they liked. Well, I mean, what do you think his role could be going forward? Because I think I've mentioned how high I am on what he can bring, especially like in this game, didn't shoot the ball great, but it was still 1 of 3 from 3. It still gives you that threat from behind the perimeter. And right now he's rebounding at a good rate. He's playing solid defense. I'm not sure what he has to do more to get on the floor. Like he had the highest defensive rebounding rate on the team in this game. I don't know what he needs to do to get more minutes. I don't know if it's going to be situational like that going forward, or if maybe Mo truly has to take a seat for Yelovich to get those minutes.
I said like earlier, just having him be the threat of a shooter, I think obviously opens up so much for guys, including Ortega and whoever else in this offense looks a lot better just by the pure threat of having either him or Cam at the 4. As far as his role, I think you could see him in a role like this, getting 16 to 17 minutes in games where, Quaintance is out there. Because, I mean, what was the first real game he didn't play was, St. John's?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, now he's kind of back to play. I don't know if it's a game plan thing so much as just when JQ's back, they just can't find a way to get him on the floor. I would agree with you. I think you still can, and I think you can get him in that, Mo Diabate role. But then I guess you play Yelly at the 4 at that point, and JQ at the 5. Can they play together? I don't know. It's somehow like this team, I bring it back to just Malachi is so much better than they thought, that now you got all these big guys and you don't know what to do, because I think it's pretty clear everybody expected Malachi not to play much, if at all, this year, and now he's by far your best big man, and he's a guy that I think has to be on the floor for 25-ish minutes a game. He's earned that. I mean, even in his games where we've said he doesn't play like that great, like he's still giving you, I think, more than any of these other big men outside of JQ for that St. John's game. So,
and when we mention that he doesn't play great, it's usually for like a 3-possession spell. Usually, like most of the game, he's playing terrific, and it's kind of like that Missouri game where he had back-to-back turnovers, and it ultimately causes you to lose that game. But he was a lot of the reason you were in that game to begin with, too.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it since the Louisville game. I feel like he's so much better than expected, and he's continuing to get better and better. And I think obviously Saturday you saw just how special he can be in this offense. But yeah, I don't know. And maybe there's a world where even a healthy JQ, you're not saying you get 30 minutes a game, because hand up, I said after St. John's, like when this guy's healthy, he's a guy that has to play 30 minutes a game. I gave you 3 players that I thought, with him, Lowe, and Owe. I said all 3 of those guys need to play 30 plus. Like, maybe JQ's not that, right? Like St. John's was obviously a better matchup for him. They don't score a ton. They want to throw the ball in the post. JQ can get down there and defend probably any big man in the country. But, when you're playing SEC schools and they're spreading you out and doing all this, like, especially, offensively, and they got length and size inside, like, he's going to have a tough time scoring. So, I probably overreacted a little bit, got into the hype. But, yeah, maybe he's a guy that, even when healthy, fits that, like, 18-minute mold. And Malachi's still your starting 5. That's not a sentence I ever thought I would say, but it's legitimately, I think, probably there's a good case for it right now.
Yeah, there truly is. The only thing is, like, definitely can't play Mo and Malachi, I think, at the same time. I don't think that's a good option. I don't think Malachi with any other non-shooting big outside of Yelovich is honestly an option. Like, even BG and Malachi, I don't think that's a good lineup to run out there either. I mean, what do you think? Because obviously these bigs have got to get some run. We just don't have enough guards to be able to, space those minutes out. And they're really not playing to a level where they should. Obviously, Colin Chandler and Denzel not playing to that high of a standard right now. When you're looking at running, I don't want to say a too big set, because I don't necessarily consider, Yelovich a traditional big. I mean, what do you look for? What are the 2 guys you think can play together? Because I think you can look at a world in which Malachi and Yelovich are on the floor, or Yelovich and JQ, but you can't have JQ and Malachi. You can't have JQ and BG. What are you looking for when you see just a lineup going forward without Jaland and JQ coming back?
I think the key actually is going to be Cam Williams, not from the aspect of like him playing.
He's been so good lately.
Yeah. But like I legitimately think like you could probably get away with playing 2 bigs if you did either, Yelovich and JQ or Yelovich and Malachi along with Cam Williams, so that you have multiple shooters on the floor. Like, I don't think you can do it and then run out, Colin Chandler, Ortega, and Denzel. Like, I don't think that you can create the spacing there. But if you can have, Cam at the 3, Yelovich, Malachi, or Yelovich and JQ surrounded by Ortega, and then either Jasper or Denzel or like one of those guys, I think that like that could be a lineup where you could maybe get away with it. And I'm not big on, the BG and Malachi. I do think like in some like instances, yeah, like, I think they can do some good things. Again, I was BG's biggest hater last year. I think that was probably pretty fair to say, but like I do think like when he's coming in and just giving you like those little 3-minute runs, he is bringing a level of energy that frankly from a lot of guys we haven't seen this year. And I know early in the year when he was a starter, we weren't getting it from him. So I'm not going to completely defend him, but I do think in those little spurts he's coming in and playing pretty hard and pretty well. So, for brief moments, I'm okay with it. But yeah, I don't want to see it like as your main focal point or game plan. So I really think it is like back to it's coming down to Cam Williams and how much you can have him on the floor and play him at that hybrid 3 and 4 role and just kind of have him go back and forth depending on the lineup you're going to roll out there.
Yeah, and I think right now with this team specifically, Ortega and Cam have to be getting the most minutes on a game-by-game basis. Like, those are the two that almost can't leave the floor. I mean, Ortega
and Pope kind of alluded to, starting Cam here soon. So,
I mean, what does he want to do? Does he want me to read it out there for him? I mean, especially with Jalen's injury, I don't know what else you would look forward to or like what you would even expect to be the starters. I don't know, man. I think obviously, you and I are both very reactionary having to do this game by game, and the coaching staff has been so reactionary in the way, they've changed the scheme game in and game out. I just don't know what the best answer is. I really don't. Like, I keep each week, I think we probably, if we just looked at ourselves the past 3 weeks and what we've done on those podcasts, we've probably said stuff that contradicts each other every single week.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But
I mean, I just called myself out. I said healthy JQ's got to play 30-plus minutes a game. No.
But the thing is, like, crazy thing is, like, I still think there is a world for that. Like, I still think there is a possibility, maybe not 30, probably like that 25 area that you got from Amari last year. I still think there's a world in which that can happen, but we also have to let JQ get comfortable first, too. Like, at no point have we let him get comfortable. We let him come in for that St. John's game. We just assumed he was all systems go and, ready to be back. We weren't even sure until that game that he was playing. So I think he probably deserves a little bit of patience. And all I know is these guards have got to step up. Colin Chandler, Denzel Aberdeen, Jasper Johnson, with the absence of Jaland Lowe, one of those two have really got to step up. And unfortunately for Ortega, I mean, he's probably going to have to take on some of that too. He's going to have to step up, even though he's been playing terrific as of late.
Yeah, and I think Ortega's ready for it. We saw it, obviously, in SEC play last year where he was kind of the focal point. This year, I think he knows he's got to do it to even another level. And
way higher,
And he's done it, to be fair. He's answered the bell, and I feel like for the most part, outside of, a couple little instances, like he's cleaned up some of the other stuff of like truly forcing bad shots and making those plays where you're just like, screaming, kick it out. Like he kind of knows when to attack and go at the rim. It seems like he's gotten better, especially in SEC play. But to your point earlier, I'd say really outside of the first like 5 or 6 games, we're really getting the Ortega that, we wanted to see preseason. And, you heard SEC player of the year. He's coming into that role. Now the question is just obviously without Jaland Lowe and the way the season's gone, like, is it enough to, carry you into the tournament?
Well, that's the question, Jacob. That is the question, Mr. Boyers, and I'm going to put your feet to the fire here. Jake, we're about a little over halfway through the season, just over halfway.
10-6, right? That's where we're at.
That is where we're at. Is this team making the tournament? Obviously, you actually just saw them put up, maybe their second best game they've played of the season. But you also just got crippling news that Jaland Lowe is out for the season. Yeah. With all this information that I'm throwing at you, are they making the tournament?
Man. So what, you play, is it 31 regular season games? I'm trying to do the math here.
We all know you're not good at math. Who are we kidding? Who let
you? Is that what they play? 30? Yeah, they play 31, so that's why we're just over halfway.
Yeah, look at you scratching your head. You're trying to do math, and you're I'm getting the heat sweats. The brain is turning. I see the steam coming out of your ears and everything.
Whatever. I know how to do some math. I killed some math on Saturday on DraftKings. You know who's not very good at math? That's Tyler trying to figure out an over-under.
Yeah, that was – it was very unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, we'll tell the people just briefly. We all picked, 4 of us one leg for a parlay. 3 out of the 4 hit. I'm not going to tell you the guy that didn't, but thank you
Yeah, I
guys.
will. His name's Tyler Britton. And he wanted the over 80 yards, Jacob.
Yeah.
Let's not even bury that lead. He wanted over 80 yards, barely sniffed 50, and we lost. So,
yeah. So, tough break. Does this team make the tournament?
I was going to say, you keep dancing around this, man. You keep finding yourself some extra minutes. Jacob, does this 2025-2026 Kentucky basketball team make the tournament?
I think you got to probably win 18 games. I think that's kind of the number I've said even coming back. So, like, can this team find a way to win 8 more games in the SEC? I'm going to say yeah. Outside of some angry tweeting during the Gonzaga game, I've never said this team wasn't going to make the tournament. Emotions were high for all UK fans during that. I think we all had some
just a little bit
over exaggerations, right? Losing by 30 points on a neutral floor that you dominate at 99% of the crowd, it can lead to some boiling emotions.
I can see you getting a little heated right now, just reliving it.
I still lean towards this team makes it. If you made me bet, we're like, a 10 seed, maybe an 11 that's even playing in Dayton. But yeah, I think they find a way to sneak eight wins here. I mean, and go, what would that be, 9-9 in SEC play?
Yep.
So I think it's possible. I think that gets you in. I think if you win 10, you're like 100% for sure in. You're probably like a 8 or 9 seed, but comfortably in. So I'll say they do it.
All right. Well, great to have your opinion.
What's yours?
Just because
you told me I'm going to be Mr. Negative here. I'm going to spin it back to you.
I'm not going to be negative here. This team will make the tournament. They're still, even with the injuries, even with the square pegs not fitting into a round hole, I think there still is too much talent on this team to not at least make the tournament, win 8 more games throughout this regular season. Now, some of those they're going to have to steal on the road, and they're really going to have to make sure they work and protect home court. Like, that's going to be huge for the rest of the season. Jake, I'm going to be super positive on this. I think this team will make the tournament. If you laid the bet down in front of me right now, I'd put a little wager on there. I'm not saying to be a sizable amount, as you know, small market business over here. We don't got much to put down. But I'd put it on this team making the tournament. And I don't know if that is a lot being made into how I saw this coaching staff change.
Yeah.
And kind of revert back to what they are best at. And really, I mean, think about it this way. They're getting their best shooters on the floor once again.
It's true.
They're getting their best shooters on the floor again. Now, granted, do they change all that once JQ comes back? I don't know. So I'm putting a lot of my hope and a lot of my faith into Mark Pope. And it's a scary place to be. Very scary place to be. But, Jake, I got him making the tournament. Hopefully it's some magical run that we can talk about years down the line that even kind of like the 2019 Reds, Jake, if you remember them, the scariest 75-win team you've ever seen. They're doing curls in the dugout. Derek Dietrich, Michael Robinson, pimping home runs. A team that wasn't the best, but you remember them years down the line. Hopefully that's something this team can do and scratch and claw to get into the tournament. Unfortunately, with a $20 million roster, to just say that phrase is tough to hear.
Yeah. I was looking at it right now. Kentucky is plus money to win 8.5 conference games. So they obviously have won. So they're plus 120 to go win another 8. So
let's just kind of dive through the schedule here. Let's talk about games that they have that I think this LSU game, it's on the road. I still think that's one that
you got to win it.
Have to take care of business there.
You lose that one, I'm probably changing my answer. I'm going to be honest.
We will hop on right after that game, and we will both just sign out for the season, and we'll talk transfer portal because the transfer portal's been great. And then Sunday you go on the road to Tennessee. Tennessee's not playing well. They really aren't. They haven't been playing well as of late.
Texas.
Could you find a way in which – that's what I'm saying. It's like the SEC, like you go week by week, and then you look at Vandy. Vandy is incredible so far. Arkansas is playing incredible. I don't know, man. Like, I don't think Georgia's very good. South Carolina's very good. I think you'll probably lose to A&M on the road.
Oklahoma lost by 20 to the team that you just beat by 20, so.
Yeah. And then, like, Ole Miss is not playing well either.
Auburn hasn't been great.
I think, looking at this, I can't tell you the exact win.
I agree with you.
I can't tell you the exact wins that you get. But I do think they get enough to where they have at least 8 more wins. That'd make them, what? 18?
Yeah.
18 13 to end the season. And I think
maybe sneak in at 17 wins. Maybe.
Yeah, you're really putting a lot on the line there to do that.
You're bubble watching. Like
you'd have to have like a pretty good tournament run in SEC, maybe win a couple games, but
I think you could. So
yeah.
But I think 18.
The NCAA does not like the University of Kentucky, so we have to.
I don't know. People say that, but you don't think Kentucky's going to draw more viewers than if they put St. Louis in as an at-large?
Why are you taking a shot at the Billikens here?
Just a random team that popped in my mind.
Wow, taking shots at the St. Louis Billikens. I never thought I'd see it on my days of the Cats Talk podcast.
Well, you don't know me well enough. I hate St. Louis, everything. I'm just kidding. I got engaged in the city of St. Louis. I got to clarify here.
Is that the reason?
No, no, absolutely not. We won't put that into the universe for Miss Kate to hear.
But I do agree with you. I hate St. Louis Cardinals almost more than any other franchise in sports outside of the Chicago Cubs. So, Jake, we both got them making the tournament. Obviously, that starts with a win at LSU.
Yep, that could change a lot tomorrow or Wednesday night.
It could change a ton. And with the – I don't know if I want to say balance that there is in this SEC because it seems like almost any team can beat any team any night. Like you just saw Texas, like you mentioned, beat Alabama, who – if you watch them play us, they look unbeatable.
Yep.
What are you expecting to see against LSU, or what do you need to see to maybe confirm those aspirations that we have of getting to March?
I'm gonna say the same thing probably every
week in and week out. Yeah.
Well, every game that feels like this. Real quick, you talked about the SEC. I said it a couple weeks ago. Like you may not have the great teams like you had last year with an Auburn that goes to the Final Four, but I think you got a lot of tournament teams and a lot of just good basketball teams, and Vandy might be the best of the best, to be honest. Which
so crazy to say. Who would have thought we were in a world where Vandy was on the edge of going to the playoffs and is the powerhouse of SEC basketball 3 years ago?
Wild. As far as what do I need to see Wednesday night? A win. I'm going to say it for all of these kind of games. I said it for Missouri. It didn't happen. Felt it for Mississippi State. Like, I don't care. I don't care if they win 41-40. I don't care if they win 99-90. I don't care if whatever. I don't care if they win by 35. Just win. Long as there's a W in that column when we hop on Wednesday night, I will be a happy camper.
Yeah, I mean, this LSU team, they're already 0-3 in conference play. So this is a game you have to win. And Jake, I think this is, I don't know where I'm going to put, my final total at this game, but I'm going to say maybe I'll lead off here, give you some time, and I normally put your feet to the fire to start. Give me 87-80 Cats. Cats win by 7 on the road. You don't feel great about it, but they won and they got out of there alive.
I'm going to say similar to Missouri with just we kind of execute down the stretch and win. So, I mean, I think we get in the 70s, but go 75-70.
Mr. Negative over here.
That's not true. How many did you have us winning by?
We just scored 92. Be positive.
I picked us to score 70-something against Missouri, and you were like, that's way too low. This Missouri team can't play defense. I got us winning this one 88.
Well, we didn't score the last 5 minutes of the game.
Exactly.
What do you want from
me? you don't think that's a possibility again? Let's just make some free throws and get out of there.
All right, Big Blue Nation. That's going to be all from the Cats Talk podcast. Make sure you're keeping up with us on social media, on X, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your news. Jake, transfer portal has been wild. I'm sitting there as the Lady Cats. First off, let's mention that a little bit. Lady Cats take down Oklahoma at home. And Will Stein's like, hey, Cats Talk Podcast. Hey, Cam Johnson. I don't think you got enough work going on for you. Here's 4 portal commitments. Bang, 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 bang.
And you're going to tweet the wrong person's picture.
And I'm going to tweet the wrong person's picture. Mark Manford III, you called me out on it. The hand's up. It's up, but if I can put the finger back a little bit, Missouri Tigers athletic page, that's on you a little bit as well. You tagged him in that photo. But Jake, Big Blue Nation, they know where to get all their news from. It's here at the Cats Talk Podcast. We've got you covered. Follow us wherever you get your social media, and we're here doing our podcast on YouTube. Jake, Cats desperately need a win. Haven't been getting great news as of late. Let's just get a win in Baton Rouge.
Let's do it. I'm for it.
Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.